I'm Jim Collison, live from the Gallup campus here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, a special CliftonStrengths Summit 2016 edition, recorded on August 25th, 2016. This special edition of Call to Coach was designed to highlight some of the more popular sessions that were given during the CliftonStrengths Summit in 2016. We'll be interviewing session leaders with their best material from their sessions. Brent O'Bannon is our guest today. Brent is an author, Gallup's very first certified coach, and a two-time Call to Coach guest. His vision is to champion strengths for global excellence. He's currently headquartered in Dallas, Texas, and his session was generating new business through public speaking at the summit. Brent, hey, welcome back to A Call to Coach.
Oh, it's always good.
Tell us just real quick. So for folks who may not know you, let's get just a little insight. I gave a little in the bio, but tell us a little bit about your strengths practice. What do you do? How does that work?
I absolutely love helping entrepreneurial leaders, and so that means helping them to maximize the strengths in themselves and their teams. And then how do we mobilize those strengths? How do we actually put them into practice in work and well-being? And the third piece is, which I get very energized about, is how do you monetize those strengths? How do you really aim them so that you're creating profitability and also a life that is richer? That's my passion.
Very good. And so you work with coaches a lot, right? I mean, kind of your focus while you're speaking and doing public speaking and some of those kinds of things. You also work with individual coaches?
It seems that many coaches have reached out to me and sought me out. It wasn't that I went on purpose seeking coaches. I guess since I've had my business since 1993, first as a counselor, and then I repurposed my business into coaching. So many of those coaches have seen that, hey, I guess I've been doing this a while, and I'm still here, and I'm still making a good living, and so many of them want to know, hey, what's your best practices, and also I need a mentor guide, to help me in the process of building my own coaching and speaking business.
Yeah, well, even a coach needs a coach, right?
I believe that.
Is what we say. Well, good. We want to dig in today. The session title, like I mentioned in the intro, Generating New Business Through Public Speaking. Of course, this is near and dear to my heart because I consider all the webcasts that we do public speaking. So interested in hearing this from you, and let's dig right in.
One of the most interesting statistics I ever heard was that 93% of adults are shy, yet the number one secret to success is public communication. And in my own life, I've found that that's so true, that people judge you by how you speak in public. In fact, the research shows that people have 16 different impressions of us within the first 30 seconds. Even when you saw me and Jim on this webcast today, you had impressions immediately based on glasses, ring, color that you're wearing. And what I've discovered is that I love public speaking, and so my strengths help me to enjoy public speaking, and I'm nowhere where I want to be, but I'm getting closer to striving and maximizing that.
Yeah, how'd you get started? I mean, what got you rolling? That's often a question we get, is like, hey, I don't do a lot of public speaking today. How do I get started?
And that is one of the best ways to really spot your strengths in public speaking. Is to go back and share stories that you love of speaking experiences. And when I was 17 years old, I was a part of a youth group in Topeka, Kansas, and we were putting together a youth-led service, and really I was volunteered to be the speaker that night. And that was the very first time that I had spoke in front of about 100, 150 people that night. I got some positive, kudos from that. And from that, what was interesting is one of our pastors in our church got sick, and he would go and do these short devotionals in nursing homes and even into a mental health hospital. And he asked me, Brent, since you spoke, and would you be willing to do this? And I was a little hesitant, But there was a part of me that said, yeah, this would be cool. It's a way to give back and inspire people. And that's really how my public speaking started.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's folks, certainly some of us we gravitate towards it, and there are others that need a little bit of prompting. For those of us who have communication and woo, right, that's those 2 and 4 for me, it comes pretty easy. Any advice you think for folks who are having trouble getting started? It's just not natural to them. Anything that you've discovered or found to kind of help them just kind of get out of that comfort zone, or tips or tricks they would do to get started?
To me, first of all, it is truly be authentically you and embrace the unique DNA and the wiring that you have. And so that means really understanding your strengths and understanding how your weaknesses, even with your strengths, can differentiate you as a speaker. When we first get started, I think we have these icons in our mind of public speaking figures, and we think we have to be like them to be an effective speaker. And the longer I've been in this field and business as a speaker, now I'm starting to embrace, Brent, just be you. That means with your silly quirks and your outrageous energy and audaciousness, just be you. Some people will love it, some people may not. And so that's my encouragement to anyone who wants to do more public speaking.
Yeah, it's great encouragement, sure, for sure. And you will begin to actually attract crowds that like what you do. And so it's one of those things, I think, if you try to be all things for all people, you confuse people in the process. Hey, give me some idea, some of the public speaking experiences that you've had. I'm sure it hasn't all been the same thing. So as folks are looking for opportunities, you mentioned in a church situation, but what other kind of opportunities have you done around public speaking?
It's endless. Whether it's speaking at an event for work, maybe someone is interviewing a person for radio, for TV. I've spoken to experiences. The very first time how I really started my business was through public speaking. I had figured out in 1993 that I wanted to get paid through the probation department. And so I called them up and found out what kind of services they needed. I created a brochure, and I said, would you like me to come and do a presentation in front of about 60 probation officers? They said, sure, that'd be great. So I went and did this short presentation, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then answered questions. And that's really how my business started, was from speaking in front of probation officers. Some of my most memorable experiences, I've spoken with schools, with universities, large corporations like Microsoft, but the most favorite experiences speaking on a webinar. So for those of you that love to podcast and you're sharing over social media, one day I was doing a webinar and this gentleman was in California, and he heard the presentation. He said, Brent, I can really tell. He called me afterwards, and he said, Brent, I can tell you have a lot of passion to help people in other parts of the world besides the U.S. And I said, you're right. And he said, well, guess what? He said, I am over all of the leadership development in Afghanistan. I said, really? So we started talking, and sure enough, over a period of a few months, I was flying into Kabul and Afghanistan, and by the way, my wife did not go with me on this trip, and you can understand why. And so even though everyone else told me, Brent, it's unsafe, you don't need to do that, it was the most exciting experience, because not only did I work with, you can see a picture of them right here, men and women entrepreneurs in Afghanistan, and it was so inspiring. The third other speaking experience that really was it was a minimal payment, and that was when my alma mater, where I had gone to my college the first 2 years, asked me to be the commencement speaker, and it was packed with about 1,000 people in there. And so it was a 15-minute talk, but that particular talk, I felt like I was able to give back to the faculty and the students and all of those people that inspired me in college, and where I met my college sweetheart and really began my life right from that little junior college. That was the best speaking experience. Every one of those speaking experiences were very low paying. However, they gave credibility and visibility and even some other speaking opportunities from that.
We certainly, from a strengths perspective, I didn't ask you, and I should ask you up front your top 5, but how do you take your themes and point them towards some of the speaking stuff that you're doing? I think that's really important, and as we think about, you mentioned early bringing your own personality to this. So how do we take our personality and bring that, maybe even particularly with your own top 5? And what are they first?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a part I wanted to go into today. And so just to give you a quick example, in fact, if you want to go ahead on the slides and move to the slide where there's a picture of a name it, claim it, and aim it, public speaking made easier, faster, and better. And so, for example, take your top 5 strengths, and of course, you as coaches who know more than your top 5, of course, leverage all of your signature strengths and your supporting strengths. But for myself, when I apply it to public speaking and business development as a public speaker, my focus, number one, is that I read books and articles on growing my public speaking like crazy. I've been doing it for years. When you're speaking, also be clear, write an outline, make sure that you can put your central message on the back of a business card. And that's how I use my focus. Also, use your focus, or the way I use my focus is to manage the time and the amount of content in speaking programs. I will say that is one of my challenges, and so I'm continuing to work on that. My individualization strength is where I have many prep calls with a meeting planner and a team before I ever speak. So I feel like I really get to know the needs and the goal of the audience. And then I really customize the content and presentation to them. My number 3 strength, achiever, really helps me to set a goal in my public speaking and literally to go get certification. So I put myself through Toastmasters. I was in Toastmasters for 10 years and did get the DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster Award. And by the way, if you put yourself through that entire program, I'm telling you, you will be a better public speaker. But if you want to take your business to another level, go join and check out National Speakers Association. I was a member there for about 10 years, and again, it's more focused on growing your business. It's not just your speaking skills. So my achiever is constantly looking at how do I leverage people and resources. I hired a speaking coach, and she helped me develop my speaking business. So my command, number 4, really helps me to know when to have a big presence on the stage and to tell dynamic stories. However, there's got to be a time to stop and to ask more questions, even inside your public presentation. And I would also say I have to be careful with my command to monitor my energy, because it is so powerful and so energetic sometimes. And it really helps me, I think, in question and answer programs, because I can be very straightforward and really go to where people want to go. Finally, competition is my number 5 strength. And I have public speaking heroes. I follow those heroes. I watch those heroes. I look at their videos. I go listen to them speak in person. I watch the best TED Talks all the time. And I'm always looking for how can I differentiate myself competitively from other paid public speakers. And the other thing is that my competition does is it asks me, how can I win more public speaking business? So I'm looking for those ways that I can move ahead. And so whatever your strengths are, that's what I also encourage you to do. See, there's that energy right there.
It is indeed. It's all right. Just let that back up.
All right. So that's a little bit about how to name, claim, and aim your strengths in public speaking.
Yeah, and you mentioned, so as you roll through those, just as a recap, as you reset your mic there, so Toastmasters, some clubs, get involved with a coach, get a speaking coach. I know a lot of folks that have taken on the opportunity to pay someone to help them, to critique them just on their speaking. So I think that's a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
And then I love the last point of ask questions when you're out there speaking. Let people, I almost always start when I bring a group of college students in and we're giving some kind of presentation on Gallup. The very first question I ask is, what are your expectations today? What would you like to hear from me? And that's not appropriate in every conversation. If somebody's paid you to come speak, they don't expect you to say, what do you, to ask the crowd, right? They're coming and ask you to speak, but there are opportunities to get feedback in advance.
And Jim, that's where, the difference between a keynoter and a facilitator who's doing a half day or a full day workshop. You are the sage on the stage when you're doing the keynote. And however, I do interactive keynotes, so it's not only me sharing stories, but it's also involving people quickly. But you're the guide on the side when you're facilitating a workshop. That's different. So you're constantly asking questions, getting people to interact with one another. Two different speaking skills. And some people can be a great keynoter and not a great facilitator, or a great facilitator and not a great keynoter. It's rare to really have both.
And I guess the key is going through your own top 5 and really discovering you are able to give for each theme how you use that. And maybe you're recommending that someone sit down with their own top 5 and in the context of public speaking work through how does each one of these, and maybe even in combo, work towards my success in public speaking. Would that be true?
It is, and I would add, really look for practical ways and practical behaviors to maximize your strengths in public speaking. So it's not just the self-awareness, it's about how are you pointing and aiming those strengths to growing your skills as well as your business.
Yeah, and I think that's some self-discovery, is sitting down and writing some things out, learning, getting feedback, adjusting, right?
And that is the best part of public speaking, is go put yourself out there. And I have an evaluation form, and I've used that evaluation form for years, gathering feedback from people, not just verbal, but written feedback, and I take that back and I soak it up. And sometimes it's difficult to hear, but I know I need to hear it, because if I want to take myself to that next level, you have to be hungry for feedback.
Yeah. No, and change. Hey, so you've got all these different kinds of events you've talked about. What do you think your best marketing strategies are? So as you think about getting yourself out there, the way you present yourself, the way you get noticed, the way you get asked, what are your best marketing strategies?
There's no doubt that public speaking for myself is my best marketing strategy. And if you'll turn to this slide, it says successful speaking skills. I'd like to highlight this just for a moment. I'm sorry, not that slide, actually the one that says public speaking. So public speaking is not the best marketing strategy for every coach. And so you need to find out what is your best marketing strategy. Today we're focusing on public speaking. Here is what I believe. Public speaking will make you accessible to your audience, instantly making you credible and visible in the most economical and profitable way. This gentleman right here, picture you see, his name is Michael Bowden, and he is called God's Bug Man. He is a pest control owner, and back in the early 90s, he made himself famous because he was the leader of the Pest Control Association, and he created the world's largest cockroach museum. And Johnny Carson brought him on TV and interviewed him, and he did these public talks. He wrote a book called What's Bugging You? And his niche obviously was in pest control, but he took something very unique and very different, and then he used that in public speaking and in being in a very visible way to bring credibility, to bring visibility to him. And what people don't understand is that when you go out and speak, it costs you very little. It might cost you in time and energy and sweat and tears preparing. I'll give you that. But money-wise, it is one of the most economical ways to get in front of one-to-many instead of one-to-one. And not only is it economical, but it's a great way to actually start getting paid. And so you can easily start getting paid anywhere from $1,500 to even $12,000, $15,000 for a keynote or for a workshop. And so public speaking is highly recommended to grow your business.
And then, so what are some components as we think about what makes a great public speaker? What are those components that do that for us?
On that next slide, successful speaking skills, right after the one you were showing, I was the president of a Toastmaster club this particular year, and we have to come up with a theme. And so my theme was always personal, always professional, forever playful. And I think that's what makes a great professional speaker, is number one, someone who is able to be very authentic, down to earth, being themselves, and connecting with the audience, because that is number one. And number two is, how can you be more professional? How can you create this, not only the great content, because I believe content matters. So does charisma. Charisma matters in public speaking. So people want to not only get great content, but they want a little entertainment. They want some fun. They want something unique that keeps them on the edge of their seat. And so professionalism is also a part of, how you present yourself in your image and on your website and your speaking materials. But the forever playful is really what gets public speakers hired. Now, I will say that self-effacing humor and making fun of yourself is one of the best ways to work on your humor. And I wouldn't say I'm the world's funniest guy. Other people have even better strengths in that area. But I've worked on how can I make fun of myself. And as you look at this picture on this slide, you'll see my hair from back then. I actually had hair. I have very little now. But I think you get the feel that, speak from your heart, also be professional. Does that mean, wear a jacket? Does that mean wear a tie? Today, I hardly ever wear a tie, but I will always dress at least one level above my audience. And like if I'm wearing a jacket, once I get started, I'll take my jacket off as a way to take off that authority and connect even more. That's a couple of ideas about growing your speaking skills.
That's a pretty young-looking Brent O'Bannon there. That's nicely done. I like that. What year? What year was that?
I think, when I wrote my first book, I think that was 2007.
Okay, so not too long ago.
So I'm 52 now.
You got plenty of hair still, by the way. It's looking good today, so nice job. Hey, let's ask, though, this is kind of the payoff, right, when folks are thinking about some suggestions that you might have. When we think about growing the business, this all leads to, as folks, the promise here was generating new business through public speaking. So, Brent, what's the payoff as we think about generating new business through public speaking?
Number one is you have to grow your public speaking skills. And so that means go to Toastmasters, go to National Speakers Association, read the best books on public speaking. There's tons of them. I'll give you recommendations if you give me an email at brent@brentobannon.com. And hire a coach. Hire a coach to grow not only your skills, but your business. But that's number one. You've got to be the real deal. Number two is you've got to create your expertise. Find a particular area that you are the master, that you have the knowledge, you have the experience, and then it's how do I market that? How do I create a website, my marketing materials, my speaking one sheet, And how do I begin to get that out in front of my ideal paying clients? And the other piece of that is you want to gradually start creating products. So whether that's writing books or whether that's creating audio programs that you can also sell. But I believe always have extra content that people can purchase from you at your speaking events. That way they can continue that learning long after you're there. And the third area is really being persistent and not giving up, because we all fail sometimes. And I've had at least 2 major, I would call failures, speaking over the years. And during those 2 times, it was painful to hear some of the feedback that I got, and I bombed. I did not connect with this particular audience. And I had to go back and do an autopsy. But I had to be persistent. You know, I cried for 24 hours, and I got right back out there the next 24 hours going after the next speaking gig. And I started getting more and more and getting paid more and more. And so you got to be persistent, and you've got to keep raising your prices. I'm a big believer that you got to grow your mindset with pricing and be bold and start, get those public speaking heroes out there and then start going for the prices that they are getting. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, how do they know? I mean, in a real practical sense, sometimes people don't even know. We get this question all the time, like, how much should I charge for what I'm doing? What's your advice? I mean, how do they step into the market and make an appropriate price?
My answer to that is, number one, start with your own mindset about money and pricing. What do you believe your value is? That's where you got to start. Then compare it to other heroes that you look up to in the speaking business. And you can go on their website, you can give them a call, you can ask, you can find out the range, you can go to speaking bureau websites and you can see what people are getting paid and set that as a goal, that you're going towards that price. I have a good friend who has no training in public speaking, and he got out of the university setting into public speaking 2 years ago. Today, he is making $10,000 for a 45-minute keynote, and he is booked solid flying around the world. And if that's possible for him, why isn't it possible for you and I? And so keep going after your dreams in public speaking.
Yeah, one trick I've heard is start at an amount, and then, like you said, continue to move that price up until people say no.
That's
and
right.
you'll know where the top of the market is at that
That's
point.
Right.
And it depends on the event and what people are looking for. I hear this a lot. A lot of people just want to be told pricing, and I'm sorry to say, in a lot of cases, you got to kind of feel it out and kind of work it. There's not always one. It just depends. Depends on the location, depends on the budget of the event that they're having. But I tell you what, and you can probably attest to this, go and do it, and you do a great job, and they invite you back, right? I mean, I'm sure you've gotten speaking engagements from other speaking engagements, right?
Yeah, the friend I was just talking about, he talks that his biggest paying speaking programs came from giving 2 free talks. And so he says, I never turn down a free talk because I never know who's going to be in that audience and who may hire me eventually to speak somewhere else. So you got to conquer that fear. And we used to always say that, we feel these dinosaurs, these butterflies inside of our stomach when we're in front of an audience. But you want to get those butterflies to fly in formation, presenting your best to make other people their best.
Yeah. I would even add podcasting or webcasting to your list of suggestions of things you can do. That, for me, I've been doing that for the last 7 years, and there's no size crowd anymore that, I really get that nervous over, because I've spoken to thousands of people on the web. And it's just another opportunity to step up in front of people and share your heart, right? I mean, you mentioned it earlier. If you're sharing from your passion and those things that you're good at, it just kind of comes. Oftentimes we get worried about what we're going to say, but if it's from our passion, we really don't run out of things to say.
Right. Right.
You know, so what kind of questions did you get as we think about wrapping this up here? What kind of questions did you get are significant that you remember from the session that you thought, oh, those are really good questions? What did the audience, what was the feedback from the audience?
Wow. I think the pricing one is always number one. Number two is, maybe how do I find speaking opportunities? And to me, where you find speaking opportunities is where you have relationships already. So is it someone that you play tennis with? Is it someone that you volunteer on a board with? Is it a family member who has a connection to someone else? Start with those key people and start letting people know that you're available to speak. And you don't have to immediately say for fee or free. You can just start the conversation. Here's another quick question. What if organizations say they don't have enough money to hire you? What do you do? My answer is I've learned you don't want to call it free, what you're speaking or doing. It's valuable. So is there something in return that you can get? For example, I've spoken with one organization that couldn't pay my full fee. I really wanted to speak there. And so I bartered with them. They had a video department. And so I said, would you be willing to create a video and help me create a promo video from that speaking engagement? Voila. Now I have a speaking promo video, which is a must in the speaking world.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question. Do you feel like it's important to have a highlight reel or a best of or something? And I imagine that even changes over time, right? You make that once and it probably survives for a year or two and you got to make it again. Is that a recommendation that you'd have?
Oh, yes. It's a must. If you want to grow your business, you have to have some real clips. You can't just be showing a picture of someone else's audience. It's got to be video and, hopefully showing some interaction with the audience. And so I'm always looking for how can I create better pictures, better video, marketing materials out of my speaking engagements. So that's definitely something I'd recommend.
You mentioned early here, and this will be the last question I have for you, about a speaking champion, someone that you looked to, someone who's that for you today? When you think about that, who are you looking towards?
Yeah, see, I get chills when you ask me that question right there. One of my heroes is Jack Canfield, and who is the inventor, writer of Chicken Soup for the Soul, the whole series. But some people may not know that he used to be a therapist, and he became a leadership executive coach and speaker, and he's making a difference in the world. So Jack Canfield is one of those heroes. I would also say another hero in the strengths movement is Marcus Buckingham. So I enjoy seeing him in that keynote role and learning, from him in that keynote role. Those are a couple of my speaker hero champions.
Good. Well, certainly I think we've given folks kind of the recipe to work through, lots of things, a little bit of homework as far as going in with your top 5 and discovering those areas of specialty, right? You mentioned about some clubs, some organizations. Toastmasters is a great idea, by the way. That's, I think, a must. Don't you say? I mean, if you're going to do this, I did Toastmasters when I was 15, by the way. That was a lot of people say, oh, I don't know, Toastmasters. One of the most helpful things that I've ever done to get through a lot of the public speaking I do. And to do it at 15, it was amazing to be able to get over, some of those fears.
It probably helped you grow in your skills so much faster because you were willing to get that feedback, because you get evaluated on your talks when you're in Toastmasters.
And sometimes brutal. 4-H was another one of those things, by the way, that I had to stand up in front of people and do presentations. And so there's some opportunities there. As well as, I think, your advice, get a coach. and then really reach out, right? Begin to reach out and look for some opportunities. Maybe the early opportunities are paid or a freemium. Let's call that a freemium model, right? Where you're providing value back, you're giving them value, and the group maybe provides some value back to them. So, Brent, thanks for taking the 30 minutes. That goes so fast when we do this. Thanks for coming on and doing it. And I'll just remind folks to take full advantage of the resources we have available at the Gallup Strengths Center, gallupstrengthscenter.com. If you have any questions, I can route those to Brent. Although, Brent, let me just say, if folks wanted to get in touch with you if they had any further questions, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, just visit my website. It's my name, BrentO'Bannon.com, and you'll see a place where you can share a message, or if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's a great place. And my email, Brent@BrentO'Bannon.com.
Awesome. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup-Certified Strengths Coach, Brent's #1, by the way, that feeding is the significance there. #1 for Mr. O'Bannon. You can see a list of all our courses. They're available at courses.gallup.com. You can send us an email, certification@gallup.com, or fill out the contact right there on our live page. But the best way, send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget, you can join us already for the 2017 CliftonStrengths Summit. Brent, we're already thinking about that. Registration is not open yet as of the recording. It will be here pretty quickly. So one site you might want to bookmark is CliftonStrengths Summit, all one word, CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. If you found this helpful, we'd ask that you share it, and thank you for joining us on A Call to Coach. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.